On today's video blog, I'm going to go for a little wind walk. I'm going to start up on top of the ridge here and then work my way into the wind, down off the ridge, into the trees and down into the valley. And I've got these little wind checkers. Basically all this stuff is just the stuffing that goes into a pillow, the little polyester stuffing. And I'm just going to drop little bits of it. And you can see as we go how the terrain and the cover and even the gustiness of the wind affects what direction these things go. And I think it'll be, I'm going to be curious myself to see how it all, plays itself out as we continue to drop off this hill. What I expect is up on top, it's going to be more or less consistent because you've got open field and you've got basically a wind that's not affected by the terrain. But as we go further down in, it's going to be more and more affected by the terrain and the trees. And you're going to see a lot of weird stuff that the wind is doing with our scent. And when we get to the very bottom and start getting to the other side, which would be the windward side, I think you'll see some serious reversal of the wind direction because it comes over the top and then gets into that dead airspace and then whips back in the direction that it came from as it comes down underneath. So let's go for a little walk. First off, pretty gusty. So these conditions can be really hard to hunt in because even on places where the wind should be consistent, like up on this ridge, every time you get a gust, it blows hard in one direction, but then you get that little bit of a calm between the gusts. A lot of times that the pressure that built or unloaded behind the gust sucks the breeze back again in the other direction. So even on gusty conditions up on a ridge, you can still run into trouble. But let's try this. Okay, it's going straight to the west, east, west. So we're just going to walk right into the wind and see what happens here. Every 10 yards or so, I'm going to drop some more of these. Out in the wide open like this, you're always going to expect it to be most consistent, still blowing straight across. If I got in behind that tree, I'm pretty sure it'd be different, right next to the tree. If I was up in the top of the tree, I think you'd still have that consistency, but anytime you've got something that blocks the flow of the wind, you're going to get swirling in behind that. Okay, I'm going to try another one here. I don't expect much change yet. We come about 75 yards or so. Now it's kind of going that way. Didn't even see that one. All right, let me get a little bit lower here. Yeah, now it's blowing like this. So it's almost blowing straight to the north. And there's probably some effect from these trees because the wind isn't switching like that. The wind is steady. I looked at the forecast. It's going to be steady out of the east pretty much for the next day and a half. So what we're seeing is the effect of the wind coming off over the top of these trees. And as it does, it's being pulled in this direction. So if you're up higher, I think it would be different. I think if you're in the tops of these trees, I think your scent would still blow straight out. But once you get down, now I can feel it really swirling in here. I'm going to try another one. This is going to be an eye opener. Okay, now that one went straight to the west again, like the other ones had been doing. So we have 90 degrees of variation over the course of about, that one went to the south, almost to the south, kind of the southwest. So now we've got 140 degrees of variation in where these little floaters have gone in maybe just a couple of minutes, not even that, just less than a minute's time. It's kind of real still right now. Let's see what happens. Okay, that one went back. Boy, that one's really taken off. That one went back to the north again. So now if you're sitting up, or let's say you got a ground blind here or whatever, you can't count on anything on your downwind side because the wind, the way it swirls coming off these trees and into this little dead airspace behind this pocket of trees, it's just going every different direction. And the harder the wind blows, the more it swirls, the more unpredictable it is. If it was a real light wind today, my guess is that it would come through these trees pretty easy. You wouldn't have that same effect of, where it goes rushing into the trees and then, the pressure drops off behind it a lot more drastically because the wind is blowing so hard. I don't think you'd have as much swirling if the wind wasn't blowing as hard. Let's keep going. Okay, I came another 40 yards or so. Now we're starting to get even more into the protected space behind these trees. All right, that one went straight west like it's supposed to. My guess is the next gust, we're gonna see something crazy. That one went angling off to the south. Try another one here. That one headed back to the south as well. So now we've got 75 degrees of variation, and the wind hasn't even really gusted, and we haven't moved at all over the course of 30 seconds. All right, another quick check. All right, that one went straight west like it's supposed to. So did that one. I feel a little bit of gust. Let's see what that does. Nope, still going straight west. So we're maybe getting into the trees a little bit. The wind is starting to stabilize. Maybe it's just that pocket of dead air on the downwind side of the trees where it's swirling around. For sure, if we were up in the top of that oak tree right there, we'd have a lot more stable conditions for the wind flow than we will down here on the ground. You have more vegetation here, which slows the wind down and creates more of a swirling. Think about it that way. Think about it like water flowing through a trout stream. Anything that slows that water down creates an eddy on the downwind side. And the more violent the water is moving, the more aggressively the water eddies in behind that rock or behind that wing dam or whatever it is. So think in terms of anything that stops the wind or slows the wind is going to create an eddy, which is basically swirling. All right, still heading straight west. And the reason it's significant on that field edge, a lot of people will set up where they think the wind is perfect when they've got deer coming out into a field. They think their scent is blowing a certain way, but as it's coming either from the field and hitting the trees and pushing along the trees, or coming from the trees and swirling into that dead pocket of air, which basically is the field, you get a lot of variation in the direction that the wind is actually taking your scent. So far, that's the one thing that I've been able to show with this little walk so far, is that you got to be careful when you set up on the edge of a field. You can't just assume that the conditions that are prevailing up high in the air are going to be the same, as you're down lower, because you're going to get that swirling effect from the dead air on the back side of the trees, that are protecting it. All right, I'm a little bit further down the hill. Let's try another one. Remember, the wind is coming from that direction. Not a whole lot has changed since the last spot. All right, that one went quite a bit to the north. I'd say that was 45 degrees off from the ones I dropped just a little bit ago. That one headed off in that direction too. So we're getting a little bit of localized, that one went straight west. So we're in about a 45 degree variation on these last ones that I've dropped. That one went back to the north too. So something either what the way this ridge lays, the wind is humping up over that, or it's the way that the cover lays in here. We're getting a little bit of a swirl that takes the scent, over a 45 degree angle. Let's try one more just for fun. Yeah, see, that one went almost straight north. Oof. Now we're at about a 90 degree variation from straight west to straight north, and the wind direction hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is how it gusts and how it swirls through these trees. The only thing we haven't seen yet is the wind completely turning over on itself. My guess is we'll see that down in the bottom. Okay, now I'm on the downwind side of some pretty thick cover here. Let's see what that does. It's just a little alleyway that I've cut down through there that leads into the valley. So there's a lot of brush blocking the wind here. See, that one almost dropped straight down, angled back to the south. It's still going to the south. That one went straight west. Straight west. And that one went still kind of floating around. It's heading back to the south. So there went a leaf across the trail, if you notice that. I mean, they're blowing almost straight to the south across there. Yeah, that one went dead south. Now it turned and headed back west. So it's, a lot of that has to do with just this ground cover. So if you kind of take that one step further and you say, early in the season when the trees have got leaves on, the dead air on the back, on the downwind side of a tree line is going to have a lot more effect on the wind swirling right there than it will at this time of the year. Because right now we've got no leaves in the trees, so the wind has a little bit more of a clean shot going through. But if there was leaves in all these trees and you had the same wind, you'd have a lot more swirling, I think, on that open field, on the back side of where the wind is coming out over the top. This kind of shows us that anything that more or less stops the wind, like I said, is going to have a lot of swirling on the back side of it. So taking that one step further, if you're thinking about field edges, in the early season, you don't want to set up where the wind is coming over the tops of the trees into dead air. You'd be better off setting up on the other side of the field, if possible, where the wind is coming across the field, so it's got a straight shot, and then it's going to hit the trees, and it's going to probably push one way or the other along the tree line. Possibly it would push in and go over, but more than likely it's going to hit where you're at in the tree, and it's going to push one side or the other depending on the angle of the wind as it's hitting the trees. But no matter what, the wind is going to play havoc with you when you've got a lot of wind and there's a lot of leaves in the trees if you're on those field edges. Okay, now I'm getting into the very bottom. Let's see what happens here. I can already feel it coming at my back. That went straight south. Actually, it's still going. So that's a 90-degree angle. Wind is coming from that direction. Just went straight to the south. Now I can feel it if I get one up quick enough. I didn't see where that one went. But it's going a different direction, I'm sure of that. Still not seeing them. There it goes. So they're going straight north. So the wind is coming over the top of the hill, across this little open field. The first drop went straight south, the second drop went straight north. And granted, it's only going to go a little ways before it gets pushed again. It's not like it's going to go straight north for a quarter of a mile or straight south for a quarter of a mile. It's going to be a local swirl, and then it's going to get caught up in something else. But the point being, you don't have very much control over where it goes down in here when the wind is coming across the top of the valley like that and we're down in the dead air. All right, try a couple more here. Oops, there he goes. So that one went southeast with a east wind. That one went, there he goes, straight south. Like I said, I believe if the further into that valley we go and the closer we get to that upslope, the even more swirling or the more the wind is going to reverse and go the opposite direction of what it's blowing up on top of the ridge. So I think I've made my point. I mean, I could drop these things until there aren't any left in this little thing, but the goal of this video blog was to show you some of the challenges that we face when we're trying to figure out exactly how to hunt the wind. When the wind is fairly steady and light, it's more predictable than when it's blowing hard and gusting, for sure. We're seeing the harder gusting conditions today, but no matter what you do, you're always going to have some kind of stuff that surprises you, especially on the downwind side. We've shown a variation of almost 180 degrees, even on the slope that the wind was hitting into, of what direction the floaters went. So you don't want to try to get too cute with threading the needle on the downwind side. You always want to set up where you've got a lot of leeway, a lot of margin for error with that wind swirling on the downwind side of you, if you're in the good setup. I mean, I wouldn't even begin to hunt down in this little valley here because it's just going to swirl everywhere. I mean, you won't have a safe side. At least if you go up on the hill a little ways, the stuff on the windward side, in this case it's the east wind, so it's on the east side, that should be good. Any deer on that side of you, you should be able to get away with it. Any deer on the other side of you, you're going to get into trouble because at some point or another that wind seems like it's going to kick, it's going to take your scent over a wide range of directions. So scout out the wind, but think your way through it. And don't try to outsmart the wind though. You can't thread the needle you got to give yourself a lot of margin for error on the downwind side.